Motorola has been out of the flagship game for quite some time now. Now, I'm a big fan of Motorola. The Moto X was one of the first phones that converted me from an iPhone to an Android. I loved that phone. And then obviously Moto Z was phenomenal as well. It was the only phone that I can think of that had a modular design that allowed you to connect different modules on its back and extend the capabilities of that phone. Moto is back in the game with the Motorola Edge Plus, and this is what we're going to be looking at today. This is Abbas from Tech Radar, and before we get started, please do subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified of all our new videos. Let's start with the design of the Motorola Edge Plus. It's a nice phone, fairly big in size, very much like any flagship phone of today. What I like about it is that it's quite narrow. It's about 70mm wide, which is thinner than most flagships out today, making it very comfortable to use in one hand. Now, the back has a really nice finish. I love that gray-blue gradient on the back, but it does attract fingerprints. Not so much like some of the other phones that we've seen of late, but you can see fingerprints once in a while because of that glossy finish. I would have preferred a matte finish on the back. There's a massive camera bump on the back, which is weird because the phone is quite thick, and you would have thought that Motorola would be able to put the camera inside the chassis, but even with such a thick chassis, the camera bump does stick out from the back. What I do like is that even though the phone looks big and chunky and blocky, it's not very heavy. At just about 200 grams, it's actually quite easy to use on it with one hand. It's not super heavy like some of the other phones that have pushed boundaries towards 220, 230 grams, so it feels nice in your hand. At the bottom is the USB Type-C and a speaker, while at the top you see a 3.5mm jack. Now, you don't get to see 3.5mm on phones nowadays, so I'm glad Motorola stuck one on the Moto Edge Plus. Now, obviously the reason the Motorola Edge Plus is named so is because of its very sharp curved display. It almost bends to 90 degrees on the sides of the unit, which makes these power and volume buttons kind of move on towards the back. It's not that big of a deal, but you know how I feel about curved phones and the accidental taps. Was the Motorola a culprit? Yes, it was, but not to the extent that I was expecting it to. So let's start talking about the screen. It's a massive 6.7-inch screen with a very tall form factor, almost a 21:9 aspect ratio, which makes it nice to view movies that have that larger aspect ratio, but obviously you get a lot of dead space when you're looking at 16:9 content or 4:3 content. So the curved display on the edge is nice to look at, I get it, but the problem is that very much like phones that have been doing this, such as the Oppo Find X2 or the OnePlus, this kind of destroys the usability of the phone in a way. A lot of times when I'm handing the phone to someone, to take a call or something like that, they'd accidentally press the screen somewhere but hang up. People have gotten into airplane mode, so it is a bit sensitive from that perspective. The screen is 90 Hz, so it is fast and smooth, not as fast as the 120 Hz, but you know what, 90 Hz is fine, it's good enough. It's not QHD, so it's not 2K resolution, so you do have slightly lower resolution, but again, for my aging eyes, it didn't really make a difference. If you've got very sharp eyes, you might be able to tell that difference apart. There was one little thing that I noticed was the auto brightness was a little bit out of whack. At times, the screen would just turn darker. The brightness would reduce to 0. Now, I'm hoping that this is just the adaptive brightness of Android kicking in and turning the screen low. And after a few days of usage, where adaptive brightness learns how you use the phone, you get to use it properly. And I'm willing to give that a pass on there. Coming to the specs of the phone, this has the latest Motorola 865 processor. It's got 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage, and it's a fast phone by any way you look at it. It's got a very stock Android experience, more so than the OnePlus 8 Pro that we recently looked at. It's got the Google Dialer app, the Google Messages app, the Google Photos app is your gallery app. Everything works really well, and if you prefer stock Android, there is not much that you can get better than this other than a Pixel or maybe a Nokia. I think Motorola's done well by not trying to overload the phone with the many apps or bloatware, so it keeps it nice and clean and keeps it very, very fast. Coming to the camera, you can see 3 lenses on the back. The primary one is a 108 megapixel sensor, which is the same as the Galaxy S20 Ultra that we've looked at, and it can take some really good photos, daylight or nighttime. I took this around and I shot photos during the day and the night, and it is a very, very, very capable camera. I am quite impressed with it. It is pretty much at the same level as the S20 or other phones that we've tested. The ultra-wide camera is also nice. It's a 16 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and then there is a 3x optical zoom, which is okay. I mean, it gets the job done, but it's not necessarily going to give you the sharpest result. The phone can also shoot 6K video, which is quite awesome, honestly speaking, but then again, not many people will use that functionality. What I do like is that you have these stereo speakers on both the sides, which creates a really nice sound for it. So when you're watching movies or listening to songs on the speakers of these phones, they're quite loud and they're actually quite nice. Definitely nicer than some of the other phones that we've looked at recently. The 3.5mm jack on the front is also a nice addition. So, if you want to connect it to your car or an older headset, you can plug it in. There's no charging, nothing whatsoever. It works quite nicely as you'd expect it to. Battery life is also insane on the Motorola Edge Plus. It's got a 5000 mAh battery, which lets it go for a day very, very easily, and sometimes even 2 days. On the first day when I was setting it up and everything, I managed to get 9 hours of screen on time, if that's what matters to you. But I don't think you're ever going to run out of juice on any particular day on this phone. It should easily carry you through day 2, and if you're a moderate user, then you'll get 2 days out of it as well. Priced at around 4,000 dirhams, that's pretty much my only concern about the Motorola Edge Plus. It's an expensive phone, and in that price range, you can get the S20 Ultra, the OnePlus 8, the Oppo Find X, the iPhone. Almost everything is there in that price range. And you know what? There isn't a whole lot that separates the Motorola Edge from other flagship phones. So if I compare it specs-wise, compared to the S20 Ultra, same battery, same processor, same camera, you're pretty much getting the same thing. So there isn't a standout feature on it. Yes, the 3.5mm jack, I guess if that does it for you, then you won't find many other phones with that out there. But that's a good feature for it. But other than that, it ticks all the right boxes. It's a high-priced phone. It shoots great photos. It's very fast, supports wireless charging, supports fast charging. All of that is present on there. And it's a good phone, comfortable to hold. If that's what you're looking for, then the Motorola Edge Plus should definitely be on the top of your list. I definitely like this phone more than I was expecting it to. When I was going through the specs, I was thinking that there isn't much to this phone, but I enjoyed using this phone, and it could pretty much become my primary Android phone. I'll give it a few software updates for it to work out the brightness levels or the touch sensitivity. Hopefully, if Motorola can sort those things out, then I think this is a good phone to go to. Motorola also promised 2 Android updates. So it comes with Android 10, but it should go up to Android 12. And every couple of months, you should also get a software update for it. That is the Motorola Edge Plus in a nutshell. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. This is Abba signing out, and stay tuned to Tech Radar for everything in the world of tech.